I'm going to welcome up next Julia MIOCENE. In this talk, Julia will explore different types of micro interactions, how to add them to a design system, and discuss how to balance functionality with delight. So micro interactions are the subtle yet powerful details that bring user interfaces to life, and there's no one like Julia to talk about them. I mean, if you've ever seen her YouTube channel, and I've watched a bunch of those, she demonstrates clever and practical CSS animations and techniques. If you've seen those, you already know you're in for a treat. So just please help me welcome Julia MIOCENE to the stage.
Hey there.
Hey there.
Yep. Hey there. I'm Julia MIOCENE. I'm a product designer or UX engineer at GitLab. Also, I'm a Google developer expert on web, Women Techmaker ambassador, and most importantly, I'm a pure CSS artist and animator. And usually I speak about CSS art, how to create characters in 2D or 3D space, how to animate them, how to create a creature with a bunch of divs and CSS. So I usually talk about how to use CSS in a non-conventional way. And usually I don't show new CSS feature. I just remind people that we still have cool old stuff that we don't use for some reason, and we can use them for animations and some art. These are some of the demos I created. It's old CSS. Some of them are animated, some of them are not. And it's just a bunch of divs with CSS. No images or JavaScript, nothing like this, just plain CSS. And sometimes I record videos on YouTube about all of this art stuff and animations. And you can follow me if you're interested in this. I don't record videos too often, so you won't be overwhelmed with a lot of CSS animations. And I often get feedback like, so you can make a bunch of square divs look like a human being or even make it move. But can you even do anything useful? And actually, yes, I do. I use all of my animation knowledge and skills in my work. And for example, I do UI animations. And today I want to share with you how I create them. And I will prove that you don't need to know much, or you don't need to know super new technologies to create a beautiful animation in your product. There are no settled UI animation categories, and I don't like the ones that people propose in their blog posts. So I created my own list based on the purpose of these animations. And the first one is a feedback animation. It confirms a user's interaction with any interactive element, such as different control states like hovers or like when it moves to active state. It's also a confirmation of user action or error feedback or something like this. Next one is focus animation. It highlights important content outside of user current context. For example, when you open a page with an anchored blog, it would be nice to see some highlighted spot there to understand what you wanted to see there, why you clicked on this link with anchors there, or something like YouTube does. The subscribe button glows when someone in video asks you to subscribe to this channel, or when you show your user where the basket is with their purchase. Next one is an explanation animation. It shows users and elements' properties and relationship to other elements. For example, when something disappears or appears on the page, and this type of animation teaches users how your interface works and the connections between different blocks that you have. The simplest example is a drawer or a toast block, or something like this. Next one is an engagement animation. It helps user feel supported while they're waiting for something, or while they're waiting for an error to be fixed. it's not a super functional animation, but it's one of the funniest ones. For example, Chrome browser has a Dina game, and this is the perfect example of an engagement animation. Because when something goes wrong, users get upset, and they see this Dina, it moves around. It's also a game, so it's not only just an animation, and it makes people less emotional about this error, and they can stay with the browser for a longer time. And the last one is an emotional animation. It builds emotional bonds with users and express the brand. It can make a user feel welcome and supported, or feel any other feelings that you want. This is less functional, but something that users will remember and associate with your brand. Do you remember Green Owl? I hope someone here used this. And we love this duo owl not only because of its attitude, but also because it has pretty nice animations and sounds that we associate with this brand. And the first three types of animations are smaller and less noticeable. Ideally, users shouldn't know about them, and they shouldn't notice them. And the last two are the boldest and the most evident ones. Users should notice them, and they should remember them. And I like to start with smaller animations and move towards bigger ones. I think of UI as something like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can't build the next type of animations if the basic level is not done yet. You need to know just actually a few things to incorporate animations to your product. You don't need to know much. You don't need to follow super new technologies. You just need to know a few things about CSS and SVG. And here I should told you about a disclaimer. I'm going to talk about SVG and CSS. You, of course, can use Lottie or any other library in your product, but I personally like to have fewer dependencies in my project, fewer additional paid tools for just a few teammates, and I like more native browser solutions. So I choose SVG plus CSS, and I want you to know different options that you have. And first thing is transition. I think you're all familiar with transition property. It sets rules for automatic animation between different states, like default one and any other states. The most common thing is control state. We all design a set of states for each control, for example, button. It's default, hover, active, focused, success, error, and any other state that you need. And we want to switch between them smoothly. So we use transition property for this purpose, and to keep all the animations cohesive in a product, it's better to create a list of variables with all the timing functions and durations you need in your product. Technically, it's easier, and we all do this, but which values you need to use in your UI? And I took a few popular web design systems and their control animation values. They're super different. And I was really curious what would work the best for our form-driven interface. And to this list, I also added a combination of my own time function and duration that I think works the best for our interface. And this way I got a matrix of different basic animations. I asked 5 users for each of these combinations to fill a simple form in our UI, and almost the same form with different animations. I asked some questions about this form to make users feel like I need their feedback on this design. But a few of these questions were about their feelings about this form and which form they think is faster to fill. And there were some regular users, but I also asked some designers and front-end engineers. My assumption was that people who works a lot with interfaces will be more attentive to animations. But there were no difference between these groups of users, and they all didn't see the difference between animations less than 150 milliseconds. People like fast interfaces. We all know it, especially for professional tools. And some of my colleagues assume that instant animations will win because users want to get super quick feedback from an interface, especially from super busy interface. But surprisingly, they felt it buggy in compare with longer durations. So we have only 3 finalists. The difference in duration is not quite big, but timing functions are completely different. And we can simplify these cubic beziers to better understanding. And they look kind of like this. Cubic easing out is an exaggerated version of an easing out. They both start and end with the same speed, but they have a slow gap in the center of this animation. Because of this gap, users found this animation pretty long and noticeable. Cubic ease out starts slow and ends at the highest speed. Because of this, it feels for users that the final state was achieved faster, somewhere at 70% of the animation duration. But because of the last 30% of the animation, it feels smoother and more natural. Users also mentioned that the form with this animation is the fastest one. And they didn't notice buggy or too slow behavior. So I left this combination of timing function and duration as a default for our basic animations. And please don't just apply the same animation to your product. Test different options with your users and your interface, because perfect animation properties can vary based on your UI style, sizes of elements, and control behavior. For those who are not familiar with Chrome DevTools, I suggest a tiny window timing function editor. You can open DevTools and find your element that you animated previously and find its animation styles. There you can find a little purple icon, and when you click on this, your life won't be the same after. I promise. Here's a tiny timing function editor. There are a few groups based on the direction of the animation, and there you can click on arrows and find some other animations. And also you can change them there, and they will apply to your element. And this way you can experiment a bit and find a few perfect, as you think, animations for your interface, and then test it with users. For explanation animation, I need to add slower durations and more creative timing function. I told you, it's all about toasts. And the duration of an animation depends on the object size, distance it moves, and how complex this movement is. That's why explanation animations are a bit slower than just default ones. And here you can see the fastest one has the same duration as buttons for their properties, but it feels almost like instant animation. It doesn't feel natural. But the right one feels super cool, super natural, and it's really nice to see moments like this in the UI. And another tip I'd like to share here is a linear function. And some people may say linear is not a function, it's not super interesting, but not long ago we got a linear function. For example, you can create a bounce effect or any other complicated effect there. And of course, you can go to DevTools, to your tiny editor of timing functions, and there you can find all the linear function presets, I would say. There are bounce effect and some other. And you can just take them and use them in your interface, or you can play with them, update them, or change some points. So at the end of this exercise, we get a list of different durations and timing functions for our interface that we can use everywhere, and our interfaces will be cohesive. And for almost all types of animations, I also use SVGs because it's easier to maintain and collaborate with other designers and developers. I don't want my colleagues to learn how to create CSS art, and actually we don't need this in product. So I use SVGs like a normal person. And usually we have two groups of teammates, the ones who create SVGs and the ones who implement them. They use different tools, Figma and Code. And usually both of these groups don't know how to create animations. And in this case, we can hire another person or a group of people who's working on animations. But this person will create another group of teammates with another set of tools, because usually all these three groups of teammates have completely different skill set. For me, the perfect solution would be to have a group of ambidextrous who's working both with SVG in Figma and in Code, because this team knows how both Figma and Code works. And at this point, magic starts. Let's see how to prepare SVGs for animation in Figma. Be sure to opt out of clip content setting. Otherwise, your output SVG will have mask. And every time you animate any part of an SVG, the browser will calculate not only the animation itself, and also it will calculate which and if any render pixels should be hidden because of these masks. It's super not performant, so leave clip content only if you want your users to get a little warmth. Sorry, I need to let my cat out. I'm here. I know many designers do this, and our library is no exception. They draw icon with lines to keep the stroke thickness equal to all the icons, and then they unite them to get one single shape. And it makes sense in terms of Figma and SVG sprites. In Figma, if you have the same amount of layers with the same names, you can switch them in your interface and it will inherit styles. For example, if you use a button component or any other component with an icon, if you have same amount of layers there with the same names in your icons, when you switch them within another component, they will inherit all the styles if you change something. And in SVG sprites, it's also makes sense because it's more lightweight file if you have one shape compared with a bunch of lines and figures. But for animations, we need to keep paths. We don't need to unite them, we need these lines with strokes. And if you have ever tried to morph shapes in After Effects or any other tools like this, you know how hard it is to animate a shape. The shape has too many dots to keep in mind, and in the best way, it could look like this, which isn't worth maintaining. It's not delightful, it's not natural. I just hate this animation right now, and any static icon would work much better than this animated icon. That's why I use lines for animations. We can also try to use clip path or D property, but D is not supported by Safari, and clip path should be used for other things, not animated icons. And they won't animate complex shapes, and we'll have all the same problems as I showed with After Effects morphing with strokes. So let's try to animate a chevron, since it's the easiest and one of the most common icons. It might look easier, just rotate it and it's done. We can go and use it somewhere in the UI, but it's not the most elegant solution, especially for busy UI. We have a lot of features around on the same page. We have a lot of accents there, and actually it's not the main thing that user want to see, because they came here for another reason, and it's not the main feature on this page. So we need to change it somehow, and we can create something like this. It's just the way how this icon can be animated. And I break this icon into two paths, not one, and animate each of these lines separately. And what do I need? I need just to translate each of these lines and rotate it. Yep, same here. And these icons, they are always somewhere in the UI. So I need to check how it looks in real UI every time when I update any animation. There could be a text block beside, or button edges, like in this case, or something else. So going outside the icons box is not a perfect solution. Icon has two visual boxes. The one that SVG has, the outer one, we rely on this box to align all the icons in the product. And the second one is it's something that this sign created itself, and we need this box to align all the width of all the icons in the product. And also they should be understandable for users, that way we keep them in this shape. So no matter what, we need to keep in mind these two boxes. And let me make it slower for you to see how it crosses both of these boxes. That's why I also change a stroke length with, in this case, I use a scale property. And of course, let's see how it looks in the real UI. And I personally like it much better than any other option that I showed previously. Rotation gets too much attention and the interface feels slower than it is. Second chevron looks fine, but because of the box breaking, it feels too playful and a little bit buggy, I guess. And the third one looks just fine, just like it should be. It's quick, it's almost not noticeable, and it's pretty elegant. And yes, all of these three examples use the same timing function and the same duration that I showed previously, but pay attention how different they feels, because the left one feels a little bit longer than any of others. For something more interesting, I need to work with the stroke. And if I want to morph this icon between two different states, I need to change strokes for two different elements. In this case, it's a line and the bottom part of the bell. And that's why in Figma, with the original SVG, I broke this image into three parts. The red one is a static one. It won't be changed anyway, so we don't need to pay attention to this. Green one is the line, and violet one is the bottom part of the bell that we also will change. And right now it looks like a combination of both of these states, which makes sense. We need both of these states. And for line animation, I moved the starting point of the line with the stroke dash offset property. It just moves the starting point of this line. And bottom bell part is a little bit more complicated since it's changing the length of the line. In this case, I can set the dash size with stroke dash array property and change its size and starting point, and it will look like a real morphing. The final animation looks like a professional animation made in some of the animation editors. And here's another example of another complex icon. I also move here strokes back and forth with these three different elements. And it looks professional, but it's the same icon I used in our static library. It's free, it's native to browsers, and it's just two properties made in CSS that were widely supported for at least 5 years. I think it's amazing that we can do things like this. And same I do for even bigger animations. For example, if I need to do a short congratulation animation or something like this. This is not my animation, it's an YouTube subscribe button. It's actually made with Lottie, but it could be done with SVG and CSS. CSS here could help us a lot. Because we can adjust the animation size of these SVG elements and everything inside based on the window size or container size or anything else. We can switch themes. We can add some other effects there. We can use filters. We can do anything we want because these particles are like part of our UI and we can do anything that we can do with CSS. And I debug all the animations, not just looking at them. And for this purpose, I also use Chrome DevTools, and you can find an animation tab there. Let me show you how it works. This is how it looks. And every time when you see animation, it adds there in the list of animations. There you can play this animation one more time, or you can make it slower or super slow or pause it. You can change the duration of this animation and also move it in the timeline. And not just see how it changes, but also it will apply all these changes to element. So if you like this experiment, you can just copy and paste it to your code base, or just create a bunch of different experiments and test it with users. Another important thing is accessibility, of course. We should always respect user's choice, and if a user decides to decline all the animations, we should respect it. CSS can help us with it. Libraries don't. Because in CSS we have a prefers reduce motion function. So it's important to apply this rule for all the animation you have, except those that are important for the users to understand what happens. But in my practice, I didn't have any animation that have super important purpose for all the users, even if they decided to decline animations. So if you have any cases like this, please share with me, because I'm not aware of them. And I use this snippet. I don't use transition none or animation none, just in case of if my colleagues wrote some JavaScript based on these animations. And for human beings, 10 milliseconds animation is equal to 0 milliseconds animation, but for JavaScript, it's a long time. So they need this event to happen. And of course, I use important just in case, because it's a big company, we have a lot of libraries, we have a lot of people who write code, and we need to just use importance here, because it's important. Yes, another thing about Chrome DevTools. You can also test if your animations respect user's choice. You can go to the rendering tab and choose prefers reduce motion reduce, and see that Smashing Conference site doesn't respect my choice and still have animations even if I don't want to see them. And conclusions. Use animations only if they can help users and engage them. Animations aren't about decorations, they're about purposeful enhancement. Don't put them everywhere. Put them only in the places where users need them. And don't make them too complex if your UI doesn't need this. Like in an example with Chevron. We don't need a complex animation there, so we shouldn't apply it there. If users don't notice animations, actually it's fine. And if they feel interface more clear and fast, you achieved your goal. And if they feel buggy or slow, I think you did something wrong with your animations. So test animations on your users, your workflows, and your UI. do not test them without real UI, and do not rely on others users or your competitors or just the library that you use. Always test your interfaces with your users. Also, it's really important to keep all the animations in your product aligned with each other. Users will never say you use another timing function in this component, or it's different from something else that I've seen in your product. They won't say this because they won't see this difference, but they will definitely feel that your UI a little bit messy or too slow or buggy or something like this. And I think animations can fix this if you make them properly. SVG combined with CSS is a power couple. It's free, it's native, and you don't need to know much or any super new technologies to know. You just need a bunch of CSS knowledge and a little bit SVG knowledge, and actually that's it. You can create any cool animation that will look like you created it in After Effects or any other professional tool. For example, we learned that we have a transition property, which is our best friend because we use it a lot, but it can help us to create better animations. Also, all the transform properties, they are pretty cool. We can use them not only for, I don't know, animation of the cards that we used in our product or something like this, or when we trying to lift buttons or hover, anything like this. We also can use them for icons, SVGs, or any other small tiny thing that users might not notice, but they will feel that something happened there and they will like this animation. Also, stroke properties. There are many different stroke something properties. You can also change them if you need. But main thing for today is stroke dash array and stroke dash offset. They allow to work with this line of your icon, move it or make it shorter, for example. They're super available. They're widely supported. You can use them with all the SVGs that you have and just try. Another thing is at media prefers reduce motion because we need to respect our users' choice. And yes, another thing, we need to respect users' choice. If someone doesn't want to see your animations, just don't show them. Keep animations for ones who likes animations, and don't show it to people who doesn't like animations. And of course, experiment, because I can show you which properties we can use for animations, and I can teach you how to use these properties and how to create animations with SVG, without SVG, it doesn't matter. But I can teach you how to create animations and how to make them feel natural, because it's something that you learn with the time. And you just need to look around, get some inspiration from cartoons, for example, other apps that you use or websites or anything else that moves around you. And you need to find your inspiration. And if you feel that something is buggy somewhere in any app, just sit and think why these animations don't work them, or why they work somewhere else if you like other animations, and just think why all the time. And this is the only way how to learn animations, how they work, how to create them, when they work and why they don't work. And this is the only thing that I can teach and can even explain how it works. So just experiment, get some inspiration, try to repeat it, or I don't know, try to create something on your own, and just experiment and experiment a lot. And thanks.
Holy smokes, Julia, that was just absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Like you're absolutely right. You know, we can only experiment and try things out in order to learn them themselves. I mean, you can always read something and internalize it, but until you actually do it, it's kind of hard to, you know, adopt it or to have it become part of your work stack. That's why I also love the shop talk podcast saying of like, you know, just build websites, right? It's the same idea. Just go experiment, go
Yeah.
go try things. Now, in that same, you know, light, animations I find personally are one of those things that are easy to get carried away with. We want to animate all the things and capture all the attention. And you mentioned that consistency prevents chaos. How do you document your animations and make sure that they are consistent across a project, especially when you're working with like across a team? Like, how do you make sure that you're speaking the same language?
Yeah, well, first of all, we need to give tools to people and we need to create these variables that they can use. And we need to explain, like, you have a list of variables for animations. Don't use anything else, please. And if you use something else, we just need to find these people and ask why. Because I guess they missed something and we need to add it to the library. Or maybe they just missed all of our variables, and which is also fine. So yeah, we need to give tools to people, create a set of variables for animations, or create components that already have animations. And if you're working with design system, just incorporate your animations there, and people won't need to add anything else. Well, most of the time. And if they need to add something, they can use your variables and take them as a foundation for their animation.
Absolutely. You have to have shared assets in order to be able to talk the same language and make sure that that's all accessible to everyone at the same time. So that's a great point. And also, yeah, like so many organizations do work with design systems. If we're not documenting those types of things in the design system, well, that's just as much part of the visual language as anything else. So that's good information to include in there. I like that a lot. Now,
Yeah, sure.
one of the things I'm really walking away from your talk is that I never really thought about animations in terms of like multiple types of categories like feedback and focus and explanation, engagement, emotional. Whew, that's a whole heck of a lot, but it makes a lot of sense in that there are different contexts for different types of emotions. Can animations be more than one type of animation? Like, can it be feedback and emotional at the same time, for example?
Yes, it can. And sometimes it happens, especially if we are working with something super promotional, for example, and we need to, make people use something that we need them to use, some new features or something like this. And yeah, in this case, we combine a few types of these animations. But these categories really helps us to work with animations and understand how many attention do they need for each of these categories. And it really helps because I found this list, like I created this list just when I started to incorporate animations in our product. And I was like, oh yeah, looks like we have a few different purposes. Maybe there is something else for other companies, I don't know. But for big companies with a lot of features there and pretty complex UIs, I think these 5 categories are like all the categories they need, because we also can combine them. But I guess it just, we can combine 2 of them, not like 5 of them at the
time. No, I love this because it's really clear that you can map an animation to its purpose or its context right there. And then that is almost acts like a regulator of sorts to make sure that like you don't overdo it or use the wrong animation in the wrong context. So I've never seen them categorized quite like that, and I thought that was really helpful. So thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, sure, welcome.
Just 2 other really quick questions. One of them, you compared animations on a form and determined that users perceived a longer duration as faster. It's not, oftentimes that the duration is what makes people perceive how fast something is. And then you talked to, when you summed up at the end, You talked about user testing being a big deal. Like, how much do you rely on user testing in your animation work, and at what point does that come in to the conversation when you're trying to figure things out?
Well, it's really important to start with the test before you incorporated any animation to your product, because you need to find this base. Without this base, you can create anything else. And it's really important for these three first types to test like everything that you do. If you created a new duration, for example, or adding another easing there, you need to test it also with your users, with your interface, because these first three, they shouldn't be noticeable by users. And actually, this is the thing that you need to test. If users say during the test, like, oh, something strange happening, you failed. If they didn't say anything and they felt like it actually was easy to fill in, or it was easy to do this task or something like this, actually, you did your job great. And for the last two animations that should be engaging and emotional, there we don't need to test much, because they rely on brand and your tone of voice and everything that you want to talk to your user. And there we don't need many tests. We just need to put it there and see some feedback on social medias, because someone will notice them, they will share them, and they will be excited about them.
I love that. One last question actually came from the chat, and they're like, are there any free tools or tools that you use or recommend that allow you to see the paths of an SVG? I mean, I know you can open them up in Illustrator or in Sketch or in Figma or something, but are there tools just for analyzing, the paths of an SVG?
I use only Figma, and actually I like to use not Figma itself, but also dev mode, because it shows the code at the same time with the path, which is really nice because you can adjust something there. And also just DevTools.
That's about as good as you can get, right? And I mean, you
Yes.
were revealing some of these features inside of DevTools that had the folks in the chat going crazy in terms of like, oh, I didn't realize that was a thing. Oh, that's in Firefox too. Oh, that's pretty cool. So there's a lot of today I learned moments in there. Thank you so much for that, and just thank you so much for making time for us and being on stage and sharing your expertise with us. Again, like, your videos are fantastic on YouTube. I know you don't create a whole bunch of them all the time, but when you do, they really count, and they're phenomenal. So thanks for all
Thanks.
the work you do. Seriously.
Thank you so much. And it was
Oh,
really nice to be here, because it's my first time on Smashing conference meetup, anything else. So
we are so lucky to have you. Seriously, you just make this event so much better. So thank you for that.